Thank you so much. I
Sure.
really appreciate this opportunity. I've been working on this product for more than 10 years, and it's mostly in connection to my personal work as a fractional CFO, because I found that there was this need for this technology because every time I run into reconciliation problems all the time, and the solution always had to be recreated from scratch in Excel or somehow manually. So so I'm going to go through the first few slides pretty quickly because I really want to get to the demo because I think that it's a little challenging to visualize what this does. But if you see it, then you'll know pretty quickly what it does. So so my background, CFO part-time for 15 years. I have an MBA from Columbia, undergrad from Georgetown University. But I've had a lot of computer programming experience as well for over 40 years already. And I actually wrote a game in 1979 that got published. And okay, I already explained that I have to reconcile data, as you already stated. It's such a common problem, and the solution in Excel is really kind of challenging. I filed for a patent like 6 years ago, and I finally got it last October. The key so far, I've been mostly using this product and technology with my clients, my CFO clients, and it really has helped me get new clients because it's a differentiator, it's a calling card. And I mean, I could read an email I just got from a lead that is like excited to see this because they heard about this technology. Okay, the goal eventually for me is to license the technology to a big company because I really perceive the that it makes it much harder for Doug Schiller to sell this than it would be for Intuit or Blackline or Microsoft. You know, the credibility factor is a huge role, and I'm hoping that our relationship can help boost the credibility as well. Okay, so here are some basic historical information. The typical way to reconcile data is print out a ton of stuff, get to a conference room, stare and compare. A couple of people are involved. If you're more capable, you do this in Excel, and it's really not easy. When you do it, it's typically very manual, and then you have to repeat the same process monthly, quarterly, and yearly. And it's grunt work. It's serious grunt work. Okay. So what is this product? It's kind of like Excel for reconciliations. It's very flexible, just like Excel is, and that's a big differentiator for this technology is its flexibility. It has certain features that are impossible to do in Excel, and things like it's similar to Excel because you can store your reconciliation like you would store a spreadsheet. You can email your reconciliation like you would a spreadsheet. It has a macro language that will speed reconciliations. If you do the same task over and over and over, you can do reconciliations repeatedly and easily. And it's very important for training and getting people up and running quickly. You can design a reconciliation and hand it off to somebody to do that quote unquote grunt work. It has the similar privacy and security as spreadsheets. And a big differentiator is, as we already said, it uses AI to search for matches and do reconciliations. So what are the benefits? Is it replaces a tremendous amount of manual work. It's a professionalizing of how this appears and how it's done. You have these macros, so you can easily train other people how to do a reconciliation. Again, it's flexible, and it creates a standard for reconciliation. That's if you see companies do reconciliations, like everybody has their own style, but I'm trying to make it more of a cookie cutter so that when people pick up a reconciliation, they'll understand what the dimensions are pretty quickly. So I don't know if you could see it clearly. I'm going to get a little bit more into this later on, but the ultimate goal is to have a dashboard for a reconciliation, and it will say things like, you know, the typical stuff, the starting balance, ending balance, and the difference is. But what I've done here is I have stratified the quality of the data so that you like have 5-star data that reconciles beautifully, and you have 4-star that maybe have a little different, 3-star that's a little worse, and you're stratifying it so that when you finish a reconciliation, you can hand it off to somebody else and say, well, these aren't such great matches, so maybe those have to be you have to drill down on that further. So those would be like the 1-star reconciliations. And then I have this category, not yet crushed, things that are not reconciled. Okay. Let's keep going. Now, some background. So this relies on data. You get data into the system from copying and pasting from a CSV, from a spreadsheet, and we're building now an AWS link. So you can type in a connection, pulls in data from AWS. And what does it output? It outputs Excel and CSVs, and it outputs this reconciliation document, which can, like I said before, it can be shared. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't go into your software, into NetSuite, for example. It doesn't go in there and actually make the entries to do the reconciliation. It basically finds the differences, and then it's up to the user to complete the reconciliation. Okay, so here are some of the use cases. And again, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly so that
Doug, it doesn't do it yet, and you plan on working on that interface into NetSuite and other ERPs, or that's not in your scope?
Eventually, that's certainly possible. It's not in the immediate. I'm not working on that at the second, but because the technology lives in the cloud, the software lives in the cloud, you actually conduct the reconciliation inside of your browser, which I'll show in a second. You have the capability of linking up to Chase Bank, to any bank, and to any ERP. It's just, I'm trying to make this very flexible and ad hoc. I kind of have the opinion that once you start like marrying yourself to NetSuite, for example, you're building like something like a permanent connection versus ad hoc. And my experience is that ad hoc is really is super valuable, because you're always running into some reconciliation problem. There are companies that do, like Blackline, that's like really strong with just reconciliation, like cash reconciliation inside of NetSuite, and that's their focus. I'm much more into being flexible and to go for a wider range of clients. Okay, but it's certainly possible. Technically speaking, it's completely possible. All right, so here are some of the use cases. You have reconciling cash. Now, I have fraud as the second one. Now, the reason I have fraud is because what you can do is you can go back and say 5 years worth of bank data compared to 5 years of GL. And now what you're doing is you're double checking the controller's work. So now you're preventing the controller from committing fraud. It's just, you're also finding all sorts of other things, which we'll get into, or bookkeeping practices that expose the possibility of fraud. So that's very useful. Due diligence, so that when you go to sell your company, when you're going to buy a company, you want to go through 5 years worth of bank data. Now this is like a really good solution for that. Okay, so now AR/AP, you can apply payments, you could find ghost accounts, a lot of fuzzy dedupe, which I'll show you, for inventory items. Then there's this was always like my killer when I was helping clients with intercompany reconciliations. This is now much easier. I'll show you this demo, transfer agents. If you see what the transfer agent data is, it's always very different from internal records. I have clients that have multiple payroll processors, and the data is different. It's different silos. You have the NetSuite silo, you have the processor silo, and then you can have the payroll department silo. Everybody has a different version of data. Then you have version control. You get a trial balance one day, and I'll show you this. You'll trial balance one day, you'll get another one in a couple of weeks, and there's some difference in the versions. You want to spot those differences. Customer lists, you have a customer list that's in accounting, you have a customer list that's in NetSuite or in Salesforce, and they're always different. And managing addresses, which I'll also show. Okay. All right, let me get to the demo now, because this is very, what I showed you so far is very theoretical. So what I am going to show you is the transfer agent one, because it shows a couple of features in one, and it's very simple. So here's the data. On the left side, you have 10 rows, and on the right side, you have 10 rows. You have names and you have numbers. That's all. It's very simple data. 10 rows, names and numbers. But the names and the numbers don't match up because you see the total here is 2,540, and the total on the right side, on the red side, the red is always right side to try to do some color coding. Blue is on the left side. 2,539 is the right side. Okay, so it's off by 1. Okay. So with 10 rows, I mean, you could eyeball that to some extent, obviously, and find it. But sometimes it's really hard. All right, here are the results. So here you have Sam Smith on both sides. It's 100% match, 399, 399. So that's a perfect match. But then you have this, which is so interesting, so different than anything else. I'm going to make this a little bigger because I would imagine it's a little hard to see. Okay. So you have David Enver on the left, and you have Dave and Sir on the right. You have a +1 and a +3. So David Enver +1 means that it's David Enver plus 1 variation of that spelling. Dave and Sir is 1 name plus 3 other variations. Okay. So here are the results. You have David Enver, 550. Now on the right side, you have the same name, but the number is 100. And what the software does, which is the AI, and which is very unique, is it's using a combination of fuzzy matching and combination matching to come to a solution. So it sees that the names, okay, 550 and 100, it's off. So then it says, let me look for another variation. So I'm going to look for something close. So D Enver is close. So now it goes 550 plus 450 is 1,000. Let me see what I could find on the right with names that are similar but not identical. So it goes David Enver, Dave Enver, D Enver, Dave and Sir. And now you have 1, 2, 3, 400, and that's also 1,000. Okay, so it's finding a match. Now, fuzzy matching is kind of well known. You actually, if you dive deep into Excel, there is a way to do it, but there's no math involved. What this is doing is it's adding math to fuzzy, and it's solving the problem. Okay, so let me take it a little further. Okay, you're gonna just this little demo of just this version will communicate a lot of the value of this product. Okay, let's go to, but I'm going to click here on Sam Smith. So I have Sam Smith clicked, and I'm going to say this is a 5-star match. So what I'm doing is I'm saying this is a perfect match, and I'm building a reconciliation report. So this would be a report, like I said earlier, that you can save for yourself, you can save for others. It's building this report. So now let's go to the next one. Now, Dave Enver, this one, when I clicked it, all of these checked, and it says 1,000 on both sides. I'm going to say this is only 4-star match because there's differences in names. Fuzzy, it doesn't matter. Okay, I'm building that report. Now I'm going to just save a little time and just, I know that these guys are the same. Blake Robbins, P. Smith, and D. Schiller, they're all in that same bucket of fuzzy matches that are close. But you can see how it stratifies it. So 90% means these are the closest. This is also close. Blake Robbins is close, but it's not quite as close as David Enver. I'm not going to get into all the reasons why, but I'm adding that to the report. So automatically I could see, just because it's such a small data set, that Ronald McDonald is the one that doesn't match. Okay, that's the one that's off. Okay, but I'm not done with this to show you the power of what this could do. So let me go to the reports. I'm going to update this report. And you'll see what this report is showing you is this is the perfect match, the 5-star match. This is the first one I did, David Enver. Okay, 4 stars. And these are the other ones that I did. Okay. Now, I'm still not done with this section. So I have a report. Watch this next part. I'm going to calculate the unique key. So now what I'm going to do is create this table, which is so valuable for anybody who's done this kind of stuff before. I'm now creating like a translation tool so that every time you see Sam Smith, you use Sam Smith. That's the right name because that's correct. But now Denver, that's as an example, Denver. But Dave Enser, you're translating it to Denver. So all these will be in the same unique key. You're creating one unique key for these 4 variations. And same thing with Blake Robbins, one unique key for 3 variations. Okay, and here P. Smith is one unique key for 2 variations, and Doug Schiller, one unique key for 3 variations. Okay, and then they're also numbered. And what you could do is you could just copy this to a clipboard, paste it in Excel, and then use XLOOKUP or something like that. And now you have a way of taking this messy data and creating unique keys for the mess. And anybody who's worked with humans and they've seen their spreadsheets, they know that this happens all the time. Okay, so that's the end of the transfer agent version. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of other quick ones, and then I'll go back to the slides. Okay, so I'm going to pull in right now from the web. Basically, I'm typing in a link. Okay, well, that's the link. And I'm going to show you this link in what it was. I'll show you that right now. Let's go up to here. Put this in. This is just some code this is demo. This is for a demo. And it's just going to show, this is the macro language. It loads a file on the left. It loads a file on the right. And it tells you how to add a column, do some math. Take the debit minus the credit and make it an amount. And on this side, take the debit minus credit and make it another amount. Okay. And then use fuzzy to match it. All right. So let's just go back to here and we'll see the results. So this would be like a trial balance version control. So I'm going to run this little app and I'm just going to use the sample data. I'm not going to, but you can paste and load your own data and you'll see the results in a second. You say what you're comparing. And now you have a reconciliation of version 1 to version 2 of your trial balance. And I'm sure you've all seen this before. The client gives you something January 15th, and then they give you another version February 15th, and like what changed. So, for example, here is this 13. Well, I'm going to explain this in a second. So the amounts changed by 1,000 here. Okay. But not just that, you have the text difference here. You see that? It's showing you that somebody changed the account number from 1360 to 1390. And that happens all the time. And it's really actually, it's hard to see that. And this calls it out. So this would find all the changes, the value change, and also the account name change. And it's just very useful for version control. Okay, let's show you another one.
The scoring algorithm, is that something that you came up with, or are you using some standard library?
I use a standard library. It's called fuzzyset.js. I mean, I had to work with it intensely to figure out how to use it, but that is a standard library, and there may be better libraries out there for fuzzy matching, but it works.
Right.
All right. So now here's an example. We have 2 sets of data. It's really very simple data. On the left side, you see activity for clients, okay, for receivables, let's say. So you have the activity on the left, and here you have the balances on the right, okay? So it's really just the balance at the end of the period versus the activity in the period. And what we could do is we could see, we'll do, I'll analyze it, and I'm going to show just the matches. So now I could just control click, because all these activities now total the balance, okay? There's no difference. So it's a shortcut. I'm just taking a shortcut to show these are perfect. Add it to the report. Okay, now what's left? Now we go to the differences. This is where it gets interesting. you have this situation on the left. You have 11 rows that total 10,118, and on the right you have one balance that totals 7,107. So you have activity that doesn't match the balance. Now, obviously, you want the activity to match the balance. We got to figure out why. So now here's a special button. And what this is done pretty quickly, let me make it a little smaller. And I'm going to just press AI. I'm taking a few shortcuts here. What this has done is it's identified the 9 rows on the left that matches the 1 row on the right. Okay, you'll see it more clearly in a second. I'm going to match this up and report. Okay, this will be much more clear. So here on the left, you have the 11 original rows, and on the right, you have the balance. So what this has done is it's cycled through every possible combination of the values to find out what is matching the other side. That's incredibly hard to do with 11 numbers because there are millions and millions of combinations, and it's very easy to. I mean, I'm sure you've all been there. Like, how do they arrive at this value? It's a combination of X number of values. This will solve that problem. Okay, so this is one example of that. I'm going to
What would it look like if 2 of those were the same amount?
That is, it will give you the choice of how to apply it. Exactly, that is a real issue. That's very, very wise of you to see that, but that is a very real issue that does happen, and the next example will resolve that to some extent. There's still some human involvement. Okay, let me go to the next one. Let's see. I got to see my notes here of this. 1 second. Workspaces. Okay, I'm going to go to this version. Second. Okay, this is the same idea, which is kind of like what you were referring to. And you'll see this in a second. What it's doing is it's taking the first, let's say, 4 dates of invoices and applying it to match it to the first 10 of payments. Okay, so here it's matching 1 to 1. Okay, that's good. I could pair that. Look for more. Here I'm taking these of 1 to 2, pairing that. Let's see if we could find one that's more complicated. All right, let's look for another one. These are all going smoothly so far. Let's just keep on going for a second, and I'll show you the results at the end. Okay, let's show temporary. I'll show you these results. So it's gone by sorting by date. It's taken the first row on the left and matching it to the first row on the right, etc. 1 to 2, 1 to 2 over here. But there's more that could be done. There's like a lot more. I just didn't go through all of them. But when there's a question of multiple values that match, that could solve the mathematical problem, it gives you a choice. It will present the values, and you have to choose. But this is the way of applying payments to bills. Or you could actually do sometimes you could do 2 on the left and 3 on the right. There's no limit. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, what I want to show you now is something very unusual. Well, this is the raw data. Let's say somebody just loads in data. It will automatically try to dedupe it. So, for example, if I click this, anything that's grayed out, it will find D Blockhead, Dan Blockhead, and Dan Blockhead spelled differently. So it's automatically doing a fuzzy dedupe. You can also click dedupe and run this, and it will find all the fuzzy matches. Okay. Obviously, it doesn't know. These may be different. Like Charlotte McGee and Charlotte Cole may be totally two different people. But a human being has to go there and figure out whether they're the same. But in this case, Dan Blockhead and these three are probably the same. Okay. That was fuzzy dedupe. There's one more big thing I want to show you. Let me take a look at my notes. Right. Spaces 4. Okay.
Yeah, I had a few questions, but I'll wait for you to do the last.
Okay, this will be the last one.
Yeah, okay.
So I didn't show you this power button. Okay. The power button is really interesting. What this is doing is it's comparing every column to every column. It's doing the, okay, you'll see it in a second. Okay, you see what it's doing now? It's showing how it's comparing everything. I'm going to just unclick that. It's based for people who are those of you who are like kind of data oriented, it's basically doing multiple inner joins and outer joins at the same time. So while it's calculating this, well, it's almost done. I was working with somebody, we had a lot of data in AWS, and I was working with a super professional who knows MySQL, and we were trying to like reconcile two things. And we just gave up after 30 minutes, and we put it in Crush, and it found all these problems in 5 minutes. Okay, so here's what's unique. So what this is doing, there's only 100 rows. And then the data here, I'll go back to the data just to show you real quickly. It's just names and addresses and zips. It's nothing big. Okay. So let's just go back here. And we have the results. 95 rows on the left matches 95 rows on the right. All the columns match. In this case, in the row 2 here, you have everything matches except for street. In this case, everything matches except for name. In this case, everything matches except for email. And the last one, everything matches except for street and zip code. So this is totally unique. You can't do anything like this in Excel. It's stratifying the quality of the matches, but it's doing something different. Because a lot of times you get data from clients and it's so messed up, the column names are different. And in this case, just to give you a simple example, zip code and zip are not the same text, right? But it knows to match it up. It knows because it's going through every single combination of columns to find a match. So no matter how they label the column head, it will try to match it up. So it's, again, stratifying the quality of the matches. So, I mean, I can go on and on with this for,
Yeah.
one little last thing is I have this apps tab, and it's just like pre-built reconciliations, like Wells Fargo versus QuickBooks, Chase versus NetSuite. Basically, these are pre-built macros I made using my macro language on how to solve problems. But anybody can make these macros. It's really, really easy to do. And that is one of the conceptions I had for this business was I would train companies like you, companies like what we're doing, so to help their clients and build these macros so that their clients could do it themselves. So that is the ultimate goal of this technology, is to enable professionals to help clients who are not as sophisticated technologically.
Okay. So Doug, I have a few questions.